Here's a story about Rabbi Levi Yitzchok of Berdichev. He lived at the same time as the first Rebbe of Chabad, and he was in that area also. He was in there. They were very good friends. They also became relatives because his daughter got married to the, oh, yeah, I forgot, the son, I think, of the second Rebbe of Chabad. Okay, so so he had a lot of trouble, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berdichev, because this was in the beginning of the Chassidic movement, and the Chassidic movement had a lot of enemies. A lot of enemies. It was too novel. They were talking about happiness and how God creates everything all the time, and everything is being created from love, and that even the most pure, holy Jew has to come closer to God. He has to do tshuva. They call them doing tshuva. And it's okay. And even a person, the worst person possibly, if he does do tshuva, if he just asks God forgiveness, God forgives him. God is infinitely close to us. So he had a lot of enemies. So, and he married a woman whose father was not one of the enemies, but there were so many doubts going around about this Hasidic movement that, it was very, very sort of difficult to, really be excited about the fact that his daughter got married to this Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. But Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, his name got around that he was a tremendous Talmudic scholar, and that he also knew secrets of Kabbalah, and he could give blessings, and he was tremendously devoted to God. So he invited him to show everyone in the congregation on the first night of Slichot to be the cantor, to be the, what is it, they call the Shliach Tzibur, to lead the congregation. It didn't say in the story, I mean, obviously people know who it is, who his father-in-law was, but his father-in-law was also a very important Jew and a very big rabbi, and he had a huge congregation. And here's Levi Yitzchak that there were so many questions on him, and etc., and so many contradicting reports about how great he was and how this he was. And he was leading the congregation. So everyone's waiting, and the father-in-law, proud father-in-law, is standing in front of the congregation, and comes in his son-in-law, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, and he puts on a talit. The first night, the first slichot that they say is Motzi Shabbat. It's always Motzi Shabbat. As soon as Shabbat finishes, so that at midnight, everybody returns to the synagogue, and they say the first slichot. Slichot are special prayers which are said from, some say from the beginning of Elul, they say, until Yom Kippur, anyway, they say. A lot of Hasidim also say just the last week of the month of Elul before. Anyway, there's special prayers which are said to God as a preparation for Rosh Hashanah and for Yom Kippur. Okay. It takes about a half an hour, maybe an hour to say on the first night, maybe a little bit longer. So he stands in front of the congregation, and everyone is waiting. And they're waiting, and they're waiting, and they're waiting. And suddenly he yells out at some imaginary person or whatever in front of him. And he screams out, listen, if you can learn so well and you can pray so well, so you say slichos. You say slichos. He wasn't talking to anybody. There was just a podium in front of him. And he took off his talit and he threw it on the podium and he left. So of course his father-in-law was embarrassed to the bone. I mean, he showed that he was just totally not normal. Who does a thing like that? So his father-in-law immediately took the talit and he started the prayers, and that's it. And everybody forgot about the whole thing. And people have ups and downs. And anyway, afterwards he went to his son-in-law. He said, "What did you do? You shamed me in front of everybody. Well, and why did you do it? What did it mean? You yelled out, if you can pray so well and you can learn Torah so well, so you say, so who is you? Who are you talking to? And what were you saying? What did you mean? So Rabbi Levi Yitzchak said, I'll tell you. Said, I put on the talit. I stood in front of the congregation. You had like 2,000 people in the synagogue. And all of a sudden, my evil impulse came to me, my selfish impulse came to me. And it said, oh, Rabbi Yitzchak, you're such a great person. Look at everybody's praising you. You're leading the congregation. What a great man. What a holy person. There's no one like you. So I said, listen, Yitzhak, I'm doing this only for God. I said, oh, yes, sure you are. Of course you're doing it for God. You're doing it all for yourself. You're a big egotist, and you're getting pleasure from this, and don't try to trick me. So I said, listen, called the Yetzer Hora, the evil impulse. So I said, listen, evil impulse, the fact of the matter is, this is not the first time that I'm doing something only for God. Every day I learn Torah. I sit and I learn Torah day and night more than what I want to. And I go over the material. I learn the Torah only for God. And my Yetzer Hora said, oh yeah, all the time you were learning Torah, I was sitting there and learning right with you. You were just pumping up your ego. I said, well, it could be, because it's intellect and I show everybody how smart I am. I said, but every day I would pray. I would pray for hours. I would pour out my heart to God and loving God and fearing God. I pray only for God. My Yetzer Hora said to me, oh yeah, really? All the time you were praying, I was right there with you. You wanted everybody to see, at least one person to see how great you are. Maybe only 1 minute you wanted, but you want it. You like it. So I said, okay, Yetzer Hora, if you know how to learn so well, and you know how to pray so well, so you say slichos. And I took off my talit and I threw it and I left. Story of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev. What's the point of the story? The point of the story is Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev was a very emotional person, and his emotions came from his connection to God. He was very emotional about his love for God, very emotional about, tomorrow maybe I'll tell you another story about Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev at the was the convention of rabbis. I'll tell you that tomorrow. Remind me. But he was very, very sensitive. He wanted to talk about, and he could not stand falseness. He could not stand. He said, "What is a chassid? A person that does not lie to himself, doesn't fool himself." He couldn't stand even the slightest amount of falseness. And a person can never really tell, am I really doing things for God or am I doing for myself? Listen, even if you are fooling yourself and you're doing things only for yourself, but you do the right things, so you go to heaven, you get all the prizes and all but it's not the truth. And the Chassidic way of the Baal Shem Tov is teaching us, forget about your rewards. You'll get the rewards. Okay, that's what you want. You'll get rewards. You'll go to heaven and everything. But you're not really doing the truth. And the reason we're here in the world is to do the truth, what's true, and to do the truth all the time. And therefore, we have to always be checking ourselves. And one of the things we have to be checking is you can't really find the truth unless you're happy. Happy. But nevertheless, egotism always creeps in. And he was so very exact. He wanted to be totally devoted to God. So he said in Yetzer Hora, you're right. When I was learning, there was always a little tiny bit of egotism. When I was praying, a little tiny egotism. He said, if so, I can't take it. If you think you're so great, you say the slichos. In other words, the fact is, Yetzer Hora, you depend totally on my godly soul. If there wasn't good, there couldn't be bad. If there wasn't truth, there couldn't be falseness. If there wasn't a godly soul, there couldn't be an egotistic soul. So you know what? Try it. Do it without me. But leave me alone. But I won't be Shliach Tzibur. I'll do my own thing, which of course is impossible. The Yetzer Hora needs that. But that's the point that Rabbi Levi was trying to make, was we should strive for perfection. Not to act like Rabbi Levi Yitzchak that if we don't achieve perfection, that we should say, okay, I'm leaving the whole thing until I achieve it. But nevertheless, it is definitely a goal, and it is within our reach, and that's how the Tanya begins. Tehei tzaddik. We're sworn in to be a tzaddik, to be truthful and never to lie to ourselves, never to fool ourselves. Have a good day with Mashiach now. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.